Yo, so the chapter 24 spoilers are out, and it's just another insane chapter, really. I mean, I've come to expect no less of Two Blue Vortex at this point, but this series just delivers every single month. But I must say, this chapter really did catch me off guard. I wasn't expecting what happened in this chapter to end up happening. Now quickly before we get into spoilers, I just want to make a quick note that I normally fully script every video that I do, but I've got to go to work in literally an hour at this point, so I just need to raw dog this reaction and go over the important stuff and my initial thoughts. As per, leave your thoughts in the comments down below, like the video if you're going to enjoy it, and also I will probably do a chapter review this month, maybe a little bit shorter as this chapter doesn't seem to have that much to go over, and it's quite tough to release a whole 30-minute video on chapter release day, as the last few times I've done that I was literally editing for 15 hours in one day. And yeah, I don't really want to do that again because I'm quite busy with work at the moment. So expect maybe a little bit of a shorter video for the chapter review. But anyways, let's get into these spoilers. So yeah, the cover for this chapter is literally just Kawaki Kama 1 with one of his staffs. And the chapter starts with a Kawaki and Boruto flashback on top of the Hokage monument, where Boruto gave Kawaki one of his flying thunder god symbols. Now this is slightly confusing because this to me implies that Boruto would be teleporting towards Kawaki, but as we saw, Kawaki was going towards Boruto. And we'll see a little bit later in this chapter that it almost seemed like Kawaki could teleport as well. Now, because these are very brief spoilers and we haven't got raw scans or anything like that or any translations, I'm purely going off what Rai has said on Fanverse, but it looks like maybe Kawaki can teleport, but again, this definitely could change when the full chapter is released. But I think another option is that Boruto was just giving this towards Kawaki so that he knew that Kawaki was coming to the battle and he always just gives these to his allies so he can always teleport to protect them. Maybe that's another reason why he gave Kawaki one of these symbols. Anyways, we then jump straight back into the action where Jura fires a Biju Dharma at Kawaki, but Kawaki manages to absorb this using his karma mark, to which Jura then appears behind Kawaki trying to attack him with his middle claw mark finger, but Kawaki manages to dodge this by just shrinking. Now it is important to note that Jura is still trying to use that middle claw mark finger as his main form of attack, since like I said previously, it is kind of indestructible, which makes it really potent if he was to pierce someone with this finger. So yeah, this information definitely stays consistent with the way that Jura has been fighting. Kawaki then summons 4 black chakra cubes across Jura, but Jura manages to react to this and snipes one of them using a Biju Dharma and actually partially destroys one of them, which is the first time in the series that we have seen any of these black chakra cubes get destroyed, as we saw even Barrier Mode Naruto wasn't able to destroy this cube. Now none of the cubes actually ended up on top of Jura, but Boruto also managed to get away, as I presume that these cubes were probably right above him, but it also means that Boruto can get away, meaning he can recover from the kind of karma mark that is going to appear from Kawaki using his karma. It also looks like Boruto was able to get away because these cubes were likely above him as well, but this also means that Boruto is probably trying to get rid of the link between Kawaki and his karma mark, which means that there's probably less of a chance of Momoshiki actually taking over here. Kawaki then appears behind Jura and uses a big hand and kind of swats Jura out of the air. But I think this might be the first time, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below, that Kawaki has enlarged just one of his body parts. And I think it's one of two things here. Either Kawaki uses that kind of hardened blood, or it looks like kind of black rock, you know, the ninja tech that Amado gave him to kind of punch Jura, and that's what they mean by big hand. Or it could mean that Kawaki was shrunk down and then only enlarged his kind of arm to hit Jura, catching him off guard. I presume it's probably going to be the rocks, but if it is the other one, then I think this is the first time that we've seen Kawaki only enlarge certain parts of his body parts, and perhaps that's kind of a new ability of this new awakened karma. But Jura seems relatively unfazed by this and gets to his feet, but Kawaki tries to use Jura recovering here to attack him with his staff, but Jura manages to block it using his middle finger once again. The next page is then the sneak peek, which is just kind of Kawaki swatting Jura away and then piercing his rod through Jura. But what we see next is Kawaki seems to be able to amp up his staff with the karma's explosive power, which is an entirely new ability which I'll go over in a second, and this explosive power manages to blow off part of Jura's waist. So what we saw in the sneak peek where Kawaki kind of pierces it through Jura's stomach, he then amplifies the staff and then kind of lets off a mini explosion inside of Jura, and then he does this multiple times and then uses the big hand once again to send Jura flying into the ground. We then cut to Boruto, whose karma is still visible, but he still has not lost control, where he's literally just biding his time waiting for Kawaki to deal with Jura, as like I said earlier, he just doesn't want to be around Kawaki while his karma is manifested. Jura was sent flying into one of the rock formations that we saw in the Sand Village, where there was kind of just massive pillars, and Kawaki begins to approach him as we see Amado and Sumire both looking through Kawaki's eyes, witnessing this battle unfold. Obviously, Amado is very concerned with this battle, as Kawaki Kawaki is fighting the strongest opponent anyone has ever seen. So Amado's just watching on, making sure Kawaki doesn't end up killing himself. Obviously very anxious about what Jura could do to Kawaki here. But then Jura takes out a book and starts reading it mid-battle. And Jura just continues to read this book and talk down to Kawaki while Sumire is just watching in utter shock. And I love the way that the writers is kind of depicting Jura here to not be following that stereotypical, if I'm in a battle, I will be fighting you non-stop, taking every single moment seriously, which is perfect for Jura being so new to this world, trying to understand how things work, that he doesn't follow the generic ninja way of fighting, and he kind of has his own way of going about it. And we've seen this a few times before where Jura just kind of mid-battle starts talking about trivial things like saying to Boruto what is love, and we'll see in a minute he does the same thing to Kawaki, where he isn't solely focused on just trying to kill his opponent, something which is very kind of different from everyone else in the series. And it's also important to note here that Jura is still quite injured and he's missing parts of his body from the attacks of Kawaki. Jura then starts talking to Kawaki, but Kawaki is not interested one bit and tries to blow him up using that karma explosion, the same one that he tried to use against Code before Damon reflected it against him. Jura then gets protected by the roots of the divine tree, and I presume these roots are erecting from beneath the sand, similar to what Matsuri was saying, as there seems to be roots hidden amongst the entire planet, as Matsuri used those same roots to try and communicate or figure out where people are as almost a sensory ability. And Jura is manipulating these roots in a different way by kind of pulling them towards him, which ends up managing to heal him. And I don't know whether these are the same roots that he kind of used to trap Boruto, or whether they are just a wood style jutsu, but if these roots are truly everywhere on the earth, then there is no position where Jura can't just protect himself and heal himself using these roots. And apparently these instantaneously make Jura like new once again, and apparently he sits like a throne on these roots, looking down at Kawaki, who seems to be getting really agitated at this point. Boruto then appears alongside Kawaki, who seems to be fine now as Kawaki has deactivated his karma, and apparently there's just a conversation between Boruto, who's talking to Jura. Kawaki kind of chips in too. Jura then talks back to them, and they kind of have a little conversation. We don't know what happens in this conversation, but eventually Boruto and Kawaki are side by side in front of Jura, looking like they may actually go on the offensive once again, but Kawaki just gives Jura the middle finger, and then using the flying thunder god symbol teleports to where Konohamaru and Sarada are, as Konohamaru was seen to have the Konoha flying thunder god symbol. Kawaki steps on Konohamaru's face likely just because of how the kind of flying thunder god works and where he actually teleported to, but this really annoys Konohamaru, where he gets mad at Kawaki, and Boruto then ends up saying something, I presume the plan or where they need to end up going, and we then cut to Kashin Koji and Ada, where they have a conversation, likely about what's going to unfold in the future and what actually happened for Boruto to kind of make this plan with Kawaki without Kashin Koji knowing. It'll be something along those lines. Again, we don't know what it is right now. And we then see Momushi. I don't know whether we see Momushi kind of plotting on Ada, or whether it's just we kind of cut back to the Shinju realm and we see Momushi. But regardless, Jura is back in the Shinju hideout at this point, and Hidari is reading a book talking towards Jura. And the final page is Hidari saying something to Jura, which will likely spell the start of the next arc, which is where Hidari wants to go on the offensive against Sarada. At least that's my kind of prediction on what he's saying here, as we aren't really explicitly told on what Hidari said towards Jura here. But my prediction is he wants to go out and find Sarada, as we did see Hidari and Sarada in the future sight that Kashin Koji saw, which I presume is going to happen in the near future. But yeah, with Kawaki and Boruto both teleporting away, it's clear that the story is moving towards the idea of freeing Moegi, freeing Shinki, and kind of moving on from there, as that seemed to be the whole plan to begin with. It wasn't necessary to kill Jura, and as we all knew, Kawaki was never going to be able to fully kill Jura, as he seems to be kind of one of the final villains at least. But this whole chapter did give us a very good idea on how strong Kawaki is, what we can expect from him in the future, and also kind of gave us an insight into why Jura, unless you kind of one-shot him, is truly unstoppable. So yeah, as of right now, the story is pivoting towards the idea of freeing Moegi, and yeah, we'll see what kind of happens when someone is freed from the tree. Will they get a new power up? Will they get the Renegon? Will they get the powers of the Shinju that they became? All these questions will get answered, and we'll also get to see the conflict unfold between Kashin Koji and Boruto, which will be very interesting to see. So yeah, very kind of weird chapter. I wasn't expecting to see no Momoshiki. I wasn't expecting to see Kawaki completely dismantle Jura. I wasn't expecting to see Jura fully heal himself, in a kind of actual battle. It kind of did catch me off guard, and I can't say I'm upset. I did very much enjoy, or at least I think I will enjoy this chapter. It sounds pretty good. Obviously, I can't make an entire opinion based on these spoilers, but you know, let me know what you guys think this chapter will be like in the comments down below. But that's where the chapter ends. Not much else I can really go over, but the raw scans will come out probably later today. So if you do want to see those raw scans, I'd probably say just kind of look out on Twitter. I'm sure they'll be uploaded kind of one by one, and you get to see fully what goes down in the chapter, as these are kind of very, very brief and kind of rough translations on what we can roughly expect to go down in this chapter. Obviously, an important note, there is no Boroshiki, which I know will disappoint a lot of people. Everyone was hoping to see Boroshiki here, but he eludes us as per usual. But I am hopeful that maybe in the next arc, if Boruto was to kind of train with Kawaki, maybe we'll get to see Boroshiki. But again, that is kind of wishful thinking, as at this point, he's probably just written out the story. Like, it's kind of crazy how little he has been shown 24 chapters into this series. But yeah, that is going to be all I'm going to go over in this video, as I do need to go to work soon. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like. Also, if you want to see the chapter review, subscribe so YouTube recommends you that video as soon as I upload it. And also, you get to see more Boruto and other manga coming soon. I've been saying it for a while. I'm going to start covering other manga on this channel as well. But yeah, that is more kind of content for the future. Be ready for it. Subscribe so you don't miss it. And I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye.